Got it. Okay. Okay, Phyllis, you're the host again. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thank you. I will start the webinar. All right. And our guests are popping in.
Okay, welcome to the October 2022 monthly meeting of the Clifton Town Council, being held electronically by Zoom in accordance with the measures that we've adopted in response to the pandemic, and will continue to employ until the council decides that it makes sense to go back to in-person meetings or something else occurs, like the state legislature directs us to. But for now, we've adopted emergency measures, and the reason being to ensure continuity of government. It doesn't do us any good if we can't make quorums in person because people are dealing with health and other issues related to the pandemic. So that's why we're doing it by Zoom. It's been rather effective. With that lead in, the plan is to do the first two items, the clerk and the treasurer. When we get to citizens remarks, I'm going to do the Dominion Energy presentation on upgrades planned coming out of Clifton substation. So with that background, let's start with the town clerk.
We had two sets of draft minutes that were circulated, the special meeting minutes draft from August and the regular meeting minutes from September. I've received some minor revisions from Bill, and that's it.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as drafted by the town clerk with the minor revisions that the town clerk just discussed.
Second.
All right, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. What else?
Oh, nothing else to report.
Okay, very good. Treasurer?
Good evening, everybody. I sent over the financials about an hour ago. There's not many notes for tonight. There's no legal fees to approve. Kind of a quiet month. The only note from me is the Haunted Trail, obviously expenses and everything being back on. It's something that was not budgeted because at the time we didn't know if it was going forward, but there's plenty of funds to cover. And of course, we're looking forward to running it. Really excited. So if there's any questions that come up, please let me know. But otherwise, the report, I think, speaks for itself.
Okay. Any questions, anything else? All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is the citizens' remarks. We use this time to turn the floor over to representative from Dominion Energy, who reached out to us about an upcoming upgrade coming out of the substation in Clifton, and I believe heading west. So that's Stephen Precker with Dominion Energy. And I believe he has a presentation that he'd like to give to us. This is something that'll be done, I think, over the next, like starting in about a year. So this whole process to go to the State Corporation Commission and have it blessed probably ends up going through PJM or something else to make sure that it can be flowed through into rates, etc. Also required to do outreach to communities, and this is part of that effort. So we're right at the beginning of the process. So this isn't reporting on something that happened and none of you, everybody missed. Oh my gosh, it happened in the middle of the night. But rather to be far ahead of the process to make sure that we're all fully aware of it long before it occurs. So if we had any particular questions, comments, issues, whatever, we would be aware of it. We'd be able to ask questions now, ask questions throughout the process, raise issues if we had any. So we're early in the process, and Dominion's reached out to make sure that we're fully informed on it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stephen to talk about the project.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, members of the council. First off, can you all hear me and see me all right?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, we very much appreciate your inviting us to join the council meeting tonight. Also on the line with me is my colleague, David Farajalahi. He is Dominion Energy's external affairs representative, overseeing Fairfax County, and one of the points of contact that will continue to stay in touch with you all in the town of Clifton as well. With that, I would like to share my screen. I do have a presentation to give. Hopefully I can pull this up. Bear with me. Please let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Yeah, we're seeing it now.
Great. All right. So we're here to talk to you tonight about an upcoming transmission line upgrade that we're proposing later this year. This line is going to be a 7.5 mile rebuild project starting from a substation in Prince William County, going that 7.5 miles into Fairfax, ending at our Clifton substation off of Clifton Creek Drive. Why are we doing this to begin with? So this is primarily a reliability project, which aims to modernize the existing transmission line so we can continue serving area customers reliably, safely, and meeting the needs of increased energy throughout the area. I'm saying this is a partial rebuild because in a minute I'll show you a map of the entire line. The part that we're rebuilding, like I said, is from a substation in Prince William that starting in Prince William, going through the city of Manassas into Fairfax, ending at the Clifton sub. Last year, we actually filed with the State Corporation Commission to build the other part of the line on the other side of that substation. It's called our Cannon Branch substation, and we're starting construction on that in the coming months. The primary construction that we'll be doing, we call it a wreck and rebuild. So we need to reconductor or replace the wire on the existing transmission line, and that requires us to actually replace all of the structures as well. The structures that we have are single circuit monopoles. The new wire that we're using, it's a new modern technology, and it's actually heavier than the existing one. And because of that, that does require us to actually replace the structures on which it sits as well in order to maintain safety and that reliability. At the Clifton substation itself, we'll be replacing things such as breakers and transformers, and that's all to be contained within the confines of the existing substation. This project doesn't require any new right-of-way. It's all along the same corridor that we have now. The new structures are going to be in the same general vicinity as the existing structures, literally just feet from where the existing structures are now. Here's the overall transmission line that I was talking about. As you can see on my screen, the portion that we're looking to rebuild is the yellow line that you can see starting at just outside of their Cannon Branch substation, going through Manassas Park, crossing into Fairfax County, and ending at the Clifton substation. You'll see I had referenced earlier the portion that we submitted to the State Corporation Commission last December. That is from the Cannon Branch to Winters Branch substation in Prince William. The State Corporation Commission, or SCC, recently approved our proposal to rebuild that line. And like I said, we'll be starting construction on that in Prince William in the coming months. Wanted to zoom in a little more closely to the line just outside of the Clifton substation so you can see the exact area that we're talking about. This is the line that runs from Prince William, as I said, into the Clifton sub, not to be confused with the other lines that come that you're seeing come from the southeast on the photo. Those two lines are a 500 kilovolt line as well as a double circuit 230 kilovolt line that go over Buckley Park, over the railroad tracks, crossing Clifton Creek Drive. We're not talking about those lines tonight. We're talking about that line that's highlighted in yellow right now. The number of structures as we come into Fairfax County going into the Clifton substation, it's a total of 12 structures that we'll be replacing. It's about 1.5 miles, 1.75 miles worth of transmission line. Recognizing that the access to Clifton substation is via Clifton Creek Drive. Once construction does begin, Mr. Mayor, you said at the beginning, we're looking at probably nothing happening in terms of construction for at least a year after it makes its way through the State Corporation Commission process. Once the SCC does render its verdict and hopefully approves this this project, we will be back in touch with an updated schedule, talking about the construction when we anticipate it to start, what residents of Clifton can expect to see along Clifton Creek Drive in terms of vehicles and overall phases of the project. I mentioned a little bit about this, but I'll start with the construction that you see. So again, where it's pending approval from the SCC, which we're aiming to file later this year. We do anticipate pending approval from the SCC that work in the Clifton area would begin in spring 2024 and conclude by late 2024. Certainly those are tentative dates right now. We'll keep in touch with you should anything change. And once we have a better idea from the SCC on anything that we may need to update. Before we file with the SCC, we do plan to hold a community meeting. We'll be holding a virtual community meeting in early November. We'll be sending out mailers, advertising on digital media, as well as print media. For this virtual community meeting, we'll hold it via WebEx. That'll give us another opportunity to present on the project as a whole and for the public to join, not unlike what we're doing right now, and ask questions that we can answer and give folks a better idea of what we're looking to do. With that, in a nutshell, that is the project. I'd love to be able to answer any questions that you might have.
This is Pat Pline. Are you increasing the megawatt of the Clifton substation?
We are not. So it is currently a 230 kilovolt line. It's going to remain 230 kilovolts. The substation itself, the equipment that we're updating in there is just to go along the lines of updating with the upgraded wire itself. So everything remains the same in terms of the wattage.
Hi, this is Kathy Kalinowski.
Yeah.
Replacing structures or just leaving the pre-existing structures and erecting new ones?
So we'll be removing the existing structures. And part of that construction process will be to remove them first and then build the new structures, like I said, in the same general vicinity. We can't put the structures right on top of the current footprint. So we're talking about literally feet to either side of where the existing footprint is.
Thank you.
Sure.
On the question about capacity, I assume you're putting a different conductor up that will actually have greater line capacity on it.
So it will. So technology continues to evolve. As the area energy needs have grown, what this new conductor will do, it'll basically allow more energy to flow across the line. Again, staying at 230 kilovolts, but it's just allowing a greater, more reliable flow to increase, to accommodate that increase in demand in the area.
So to Pat's point, the MVA rating will be higher on the line, right?
The MVA rating, yeah, but the voltage will remain the same. That's right. It's basically, if you think of it, if you think of it as kind of like a water pipe, you can have a 5-inch pipe that can accommodate the amount of pressure, right, that we have now. But if you want more pressure, you need to expand the diameter of the pipe. Basically, the conductor that we're putting up, it is a higher MVA rating. It's just a bigger conductor, heavier. That's what I had mentioned earlier. It's heavier, which requires the new structures, and it just allows the flow to be increased.
But you're basically,
go ahead, Pat. Go.
so you're basically taking capacity from the Clifton substation and sending it down to the other one.
It's not, so the energy flows in all directions. You know, we do get questions like that a lot. Are we sending energy from one area to accommodate another? The energy flows in both directions. You know, the grid, as it were, it doesn't see county boundaries. So the energy that's the transformation of the energy that's being accommodated by the Clifton substation now is also being accommodated by the substations in Prince William County. So the energy does flow in both directions based on the demand.
But distribution from the Prince William substation sounds like you need more distribution from that, so you need to take more capacity from the Clifton.
Well, it's less of a distribution issue and more of the kilovolts, the amount of energy that's needed. So the substations transform the kilovolts into more distribution level capacity. So we're talking about the 230 kilovolts that flow across the transmission line being transformed into, say, you know, more like 50, 60 much lower kilovolts that can be delivered to homes, businesses via those distribution lines. So it's really demand across the grid in the area itself that's being served by this and then transformed and then delivered through those distribution lines.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is I imagine the Clifton area requirements are fairly stable, whereas the Prince William with all the data centers going down, that's why you're redistributing power towards that area? Economic
growth in the area, you're right, does continue to increase energy demand. I would just emphasize, though, it's not a redistribution because the energy does flow as in both directions along the line. But based on growth in any given area, it would require. That's what's requiring us to increase the.
Yeah, I do a lot of data centers. We build a lot of substations. So like that's the purpose for these questions is,
sure.
I think I know what you're doing, but it doesn't impact us. I'm just curious.
The answer to your question, Pat, is yes. it's the data centers in Prince William that are driving this. There's a whole bunch of upgrades west of here coming in off a big transmission corridor that's coming out of Loudon down, and Loudon's got the same issue. But PwC, if you know about those data centers off of 29 and 66, they need to get power in there, and they're building a bunch of upgrades there. And when they do that, unfortunately, I think it probably overloads the line that comes back from that side into Clifton. So they needed to upgrade that line as well. So that whole set of lines is being upgraded. I just looked at this myself for some other issue. We're the easternmost point on the whole set of upgrades that's going on. It goes from here all the way west out to Haymarket. They just built a big line from Haymarket in about 5 miles, I think. 3 miles underground, 2 miles above ground, serves the Amazon data center, and another huge. And these, as you know, Pat, these are huge data centers. So it's really driven by that. But they can't just do that part because it loops back here. They've got to upgrade this leg of the line as well.
Yeah, I have six data centers in Ashburn in the constrained area. So well aware of the massive upgrades that are needed to refeed that area.
Yep.
And really what you're talking about, that is the interconnected grid, serving Northern Virginia, certainly, but it is interconnected. So, you know, the energy flows all through the Commonwealth via the grid. Certainly, like you said, Mayor, you know, where increased growth is happening, certainly that does require us to take a look at what's needed to reliably and safely serve and upgrade where needed.
When I heard about this, I was interested in that. When I think about Clifton's sub, I think of the 500 and 230s that are running through Buckley Park. I didn't think of this line, but I saw this on some of the PJM maps going west. So it was interesting to see it's the line over to PwC, but it brings me back to the 500-230 corridor that runs through Buckley Park. Is there any talk about upgrading those lines at any time?
There is. Right now, I don't have the details on that, and I would have to defer to my colleague David to be back in touch with you further for any upcoming work and projects on that line. But again, there is talk about upgrading those to accommodate, again, reliability and energy needs. But if I can defer to David to be back in touch once we have a better idea of exact needs, schedule, what that looks like.
Okay, I appreciate that. That'll be a really big deal for us.
Sure.
It goes right through the park. People walk under those lines every day.
Sure.
So how that looks, and you know, is it going to be monopoles or something instead of those giant old structures, which I kind of like, and not everybody else does. That'll be a big issue, and
Sure.
we'll definitely want to be ahead on that with information. So this has been very helpful. And that other issue on the 500-230 corridor, that'll be a really big deal. So appreciate any advance information we can get on that. Any other questions, council members?
Yes, I do have a question about the impact once you're under construction. You know, are you bringing large structures by truck down Clifton Creek Road? You know, is this, you know, small pieces that are assembled there? Just curious about what the impact on the flow of traffic might be. We've often seen large trucks get stuck making some of the turns into these spaces, and
Sure.
just curious about that process.
Sure. So once construction begins, we'll do a construction impact analysis, and most of the work we'll have to have our right-of-way and access management team see where exactly they need to come in to access the existing transmission line right-of-way. But certainly for any substation work, it would be accessed via Clifton Creek Drive. We are aware of the sensitive nature of Clifton Creek Drive. I think in the past, there's been some road collapse issues. So we are aware of that, and that is something that we'll take into account. And any kind of impact, any kind of damage or any other impact, we would rectify that and put it back to pre-existing conditions. So, further impact to the community using that will be rectified. But we'll do an analysis of what exactly that looks like. And once we anticipate construction starting, we'll have a better idea of what the schedule looks like, access on that road, what may be coming down that road in terms of equipment. Will it be carrying structure pieces? Will it just be used for access to the substation? We'll have a better idea of that once our engineering team reviews the final verdict from the State Corporation Commission. But please know we are aware of the sensitive nature of that road, and we are keeping that top of mind.
Absolutely. To that same point, David Farajalahi here. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for your time this evening. We'll certainly be in touch, and this is not. This is only the beginning of the communication between Dominion and the great town of Clifton. So communications will continue regarding this specific project and any new ones that you've highlighted, Mayor. And we'll continue to keep you all not only in the loop, but also work with you all to limit as much as we can any sort of disruptions, if any, to traffic and otherwise.
Yeah, on that road traffic issue, there are two things worthy of note. One is that Clifton Creek Drive, it's, I don't know, 10 feet wide, and it's been collapsing into the creek for many, many years. It's an ongoing issue and problem with us, where residents can't get from their houses back to Clifton Road. And we've been dealing with VDOT on it for many years to try to get VDOT to shore up that road. So I think it would make sense, if you can, for you to coordinate with VDOT, because of that road could easily collapse under heavy vehicles, which is a problem for everybody, but it's a problem for your project as well. And so coordinating with VDOT in advance on that, perhaps going through that road, seeing if any work needs to be done in advance to bring in heavy equipment, would be measures well undertaken in advance. The second thing is, where you turn off of Clifton Road onto Clifton Creek Road, it is two things: a very sharp turn. Okay, it's a back turn, come in back. Okay. And it drops. So I don't know how many big trucks we've seen coming out of the Dominion substation that have bottomed out there, and they'd have to bring cranes in 6-7 hours later. So literally both lanes of traffic are stopped for many, many hours, because the long, you got a long bed, right, with wheels on either end, goes over that and bottoms out, and that's it. Happened time and time again. So another thing you'd want to look at before you do it, rather than wait for it to happen. So those are two known issues here that we're aware of, because substation doesn't get access that much, but when it does, it's big equipment. Like they brought those transformers in not too long ago.
Yeah. Point very well noted. We'll take that back to our engineering team and our construction team to make sure that they're aware, and that we do some due diligence beforehand to make sure that impacts are as minimal as they can possibly be. And of course, we'll coordinate with you all ahead of schedule.
And make sure that you give us, me, the clerk, the council, the right contact information in advance of the actual work, so that if something does go sideways, we got somebody we can reach out to and go, hey, this is going on, da da da. Like, okay, noted,
Yep.
we're on top of it, but we've got contact information. No big deal, but just so we've got it. Okay. Any
Absolutely.
other questions, comments? We really appreciate it, and especially doing it now well in advance so we can have this exchange and get the dialogue going. So thanks for reaching out to us, and thanks for coming in tonight to talk about the project. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
All right, let's move along to committees, Planning Commission.
Before I do the planning commission, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to citizen comments since I have a comment. Can we do that?
Yeah.
I would very much like to ask the town council to take some action on the railroad trestle and perhaps contact either the railroad or whoever might be in charge. I have no idea about doing something with the trestle to make it off limits so folks would not constantly be climbing on it. It's a regular thing. People go up, usually one or two folks. On occasion, they throw things down. I have, there was a particularly disturbing incident on Sunday in the pouring rain, believe it or not, when there were 8 men up there. I don't think they were teenagers. They were throwing things on the railroad track and they were shaking the top to the extent where it just moved back and forth, back and forth. On that occasion, I called 911. I have no idea what happened. I've now called the police, both emergency number and non-emergency number, several times. I've called railroad dispatcher several times. I can't tell you whether anyone has come out or not. I haven't seen anyone. No one has contacted me, even though I left my name and phone number every time I've called. And I am concerned someone will either fall off, someone will hit a train with a projectile, or something else serious will happen, resulting in either injury or a possible derailment. And I would hate to just watch this go on without taking some action about it. And if there's some way, perhaps, that trestle can be made more difficult to climb it or close it off to climbers, that certainly would be one solution. Maybe there's other solutions, but I'm just not sure, you know, how knowledgeable the railroad is about what's going on. And I'm, you know, happy to send something in writing detailing my experience. I have photos, but I would appreciate if the town would reach out, whether it's to the railroad or to the county or whoever you think, in order to maybe start getting a solution to this problem.
I was going to ask you. You mentioned photos. How do we not have photos or videos of this? But do you have photos of people actually up on the trestle?
I do.
Yeah,
Kathy, I'm happy to follow up with the railroad. Their request last time we discussed this was any time that we see anybody on the tracks, for that matter, that we should be calling that phone number that's on a little blue sign right up at the crossing. And there was a request for pictures. So if you can send me those pictures, I'm happy to follow up. And I love that very specific request about creating some sort of blockade to prevent from going up there.
Thank you. I'm happy to send you the pictures, Lynn. And I would note, I have called that number. I've never heard back. And since I live right in front of it, I've never seen anybody from the railroad or police or anyone there. So I can't say for sure no action was taken. No prompt action was taken. And I have to say, on Sunday, and I counted 8 people up there. They were up there for over 30 minutes, and I called as soon as I saw the police, and nothing happened.
When did the police come?
As far as I know, they did not. I explained the situation. I called the 911 number. I gave my name and phone number. I never saw the police out there. They never contacted me other than to text me a survey about my experience with the Fairfax County Police. That was it.
Ah, give them ones. Give them ones.
I gave him zero. So
Zeros. Okay, there you go. That.
anyway,
Okay,
Lynn, I
one
will get
difference
that
here.
over to you. I don't know if anyone else has any other ideas, but it would be good to get something moving before we have a problem.
I
Absolutely.
think it's important that we communicate to the railroad, Lynn, that Kathy's talked about a specific action,
Yeah.
which is either blocking off the trestle, making the trestle difficult to climb. I assume railroad workers need to access it from time to time, but just like, you know, we just talked about these electric power transmission towers. I don't think you can readily just climb up those. I think they have things where you have to, you know, unlock something to be able to access it. So we've got a specific request. So instead of just, we're complaining again about safety and here's some pictures of some miscreants, we also are asking for action, which they can do or not do, or come back and tell us, so we avoid this thing that they do where they go, oh, you know, duly noted, thank you. They actually need to do something in terms of getting back to us to say, yes, we'll do it, no, we won't, you know, or whatever. So an action item request.
I think we might want to take one more step, and that is to notify either the State Corporation Commission. I'm not sure what regulatory agency of the state regulates the safety of the railroad. I know it's not us. I don't think it's Fairfax County. I think it is a state issue. And I think that probably that notification would be useful to let the railroad know that we're notifying the state that there is a
Yeah.
serious safety issue here.
Yeah,
Because
copy them on
if
it.
something happens on that trestle, it's either going to affect a train, as Kathy says, they drop something on the train, or the trestle itself gets stressed and is endangered. So we're not talking about a minor thing here. We're talking about a pretty significant thing here. And I
Yeah.
think we ought to let more than just the railroad know.
It looks like the State Corporation Commission, railroad regulation.
It's more than likely Federal Railway Administration, FRA.
Ah,
I don't know that the state has purview over. Norfolk
I
Southern.
think we would induce a lot more action if at least copies of a letter or a call or something that went to them also went to the railroad. The railroad would say, oh, we may not have to answer a call from Kathy, but we sure as hell are going to have to answer a call from the State Corporation Commission.
Yeah, there's a division of railroad safety within the railroad regulations section. And let them know railroad safety, including railroad crossings, general railroad safety equipment, train inquiries, VA rail safety at scc.virginia.gov. So there is a place to tell that we're having these concerns. And as Steve notes, if we let Norfolk Southern know that, you know, we have real concern about safety and we've notified the State Corporation Commission about these safety issues, now they have to actually deal with it. So
and see copy of email
that would
attached.
make a difference.
Yeah, I will absolutely do that.
Okay.
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Kathy.
Planning Commission have had 3 applications that require action by the town, and then another application that required action by the Planning Commission. The first item is that we reviewed an application for the expansion of an existing use permit for commercial office use by Dan Helmer and George Barker at 7137 B Main Street, Clifton, to include an office use by Rios Partners, of which Mr. Helmer is a principal, with no increase in personnel, client visits, and use of the same space. 690 square feet. The hours being 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Sunday through Saturday. And the present allocation of 3 parking spaces total for both office uses. The Planning Commission recommends the application be approved with the hours and days and set forth and the continued allocation of the 3 parking spaces.
Anybody have any questions?
I do. How are B-poll filings handled when a business like this comes into town? Are they responsible for paying B-poll tax to the town if their business is located here?
They should be. When we've had, as far as I know, this has happened in 1 or 2 instances at the Clifton shops. And my understanding is each business has to file separately for B-poll.
Okay, just curious. That was my only question.
Nick can confirm that, but that's my understanding, and that's generally what we tell the applicants.
Okay. Well, as long as that's in order, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the application for an expansion of the existing use permit at 7137B Main Street to include an office used by Rios Partners as
Second.
recommended by the Planning Commission.
Second.
All right, motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I would just say, in terms of the discussion, Bill, I would just offer that might be a surprise to Dan on the B-poll thing. I know no problem approving this, but we didn't discuss. I was at the Planning Commission. It didn't come up, but it might be a surprise to him.
You know, the idea is if you conduct business within a jurisdiction, then the B-poll applies to the business you conduct in that jurisdiction. It's not new or surprising. And Dan's, I think, a state legislator. It shouldn't like be a big surprise or anything. Like you hear these people that say, "Oh, I don't know about B-poll." Like B-poll applies to everybody. The only question is, where do you pay it? Now, Rios presumably has offices somewhere else.
Yeah,
well.
that was my consideration. I think he mentioned
But
that he just
that
wants to
doesn't mean
eliminate clients here, please.
If you have 2 offices, one in Fairfax and one in Manassas, and they each do 50% of your work, you don't flip a coin and go, I'll give it all to Manassas or I'll give it all to Fairfax. It's work done in the location that it's in. So shouldn't come as a big surprise. I don't anticipate this being a big use. I suspect every once in a while somebody will be sitting there. That was the thought I had. It doesn't sound like they're taking it over as their major business place. But the concept of B-poll shouldn't be a big surprise. How would we go about alerting him or them of this? Would Nick send an email? What are people's thoughts? It sounds like there's some question as to whether they would be aware of B-poll requirements, which presumably don't apply. I don't know about Senator Barker and Delegate Helmer. Presumably they're immune or something because they're
not a business.
I don't even know.
I don't even think they're classified as a business, right? That's part of the reason I was asking, because their office currently, that space is not generating any B-poll revenue for the town, and a business coming in there would potentially be generating B-poll revenue for the town.
Correct. Which changing the nature from just some business angle raises this question. So how do we let them know? Nick, were you going to say something? You're welcome to say something.
No, I'm happy to reach out. I'm just waiting on direction.
Reach out.
Touch faith.
This is Dan Helmer, and Rios Partners, I think, is who Dan works for.
Yeah, they're connected.
And let them know, if you're running a business in Clifton, then you're responsible for B-Pole associated with the business revenues associated with it while you're in Clifton. So they're aware. And we can go from there on anything else.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, let's go back to the voting. We had a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Wait, opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so were we all in favor? Did I? Yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Even
Alright.
Elsa voted yes, so.
yeah, okay. Onward to the next.
The next application was for commercial office use by Clifton Contracting, located at 12642 Clifton Road. They have 154 square feet, hours of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, allocation of 1 parking space at the premises. And the Planning Commission recommends approval of the use permit for this commercial office space for the applicant with the allocation of 1 parking space in the above hours, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and also with the condition that no construction or work vehicles be parked on the premises. This might be another instance, since it's a new business in town, where Nick should reach out and let them know they need to file for B-Pole as well.
Yeah, I agree. And particularly I've heard people say, well, I moved to Clifton, but I still pay my B-Pole to Fairfax and I don't want to have to pay it twice. Like, so that's not really our problem, but we're nice people. So the sooner we let them know that B-Pole for when they're working in Clifton goes to Clifton, it's the same B-Pole. You don't pay anything twice. It's just where do they send it?
Yeah.
So Nick, if you could let these people know as well. Is there any further discussion on this? All right. I will make a motion to approve the application for commercial office use by Clifton Contracting at 12642 Clifton Road, as recommended by the Planning Commission, including the condition that no construction or work vehicles be parked on the premises, which the Planning Commission recommended.
Second.
All right, motion to second. Any further discussion? All right, and I know this is Jim Fullerton's building, is that correct, Kathy?
That's right.
Okay.
Right.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, motion carried. Next.
The next item was the application from the Main Street Pub for a change in ownership from McNamara Enterprises, Tom and Judy McNamara, to McNamara Hollowell LLC, owned by Kevin McNamara and Chris Hollowell. The Planning Commission recommends the change of ownership be approved with the condition that all the specification and requirements of the previously issued special use permit for the restaurant issued to the Main Street Pub May 5th, 2015, continue in full force and effect, except for the change of ownership of the pub.
All right, so nothing's changing at all. It's everything exactly as it was before. The difference is a different owner. Is that correct?
Right.
Kevin has been promoted to panelist. He's on his phone, so if you have any questions for him, he's available.
All right, my first question is back to Kathy. I just want to make sure, I believe that's what I'm reading. It says all the specifications and requirements of the previously issued use permit remain in full force and effect except for the change in ownership. There's no change.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
But
Does anyone have any questions?
The,
go ahead.
Code requires, if it's a change of more than 50% of the ownership, you have to apply.
I understand that.
Okay.
And I also understand that presumably we could reopen things if we wanted to. And we're okay with what's going on now. We should be okay with what's going on later. So,
Well, if there are changes to be made to the operation, which in conversations with Kevin indicated there would be once plans were made and drawn up, then an application for a new special use permit would need to be obtained. There would need to be a public hearing, et cetera, et cetera. But obviously, no one wants to do those plans or propose any changes until they know they own the business. So first step is the ownership.
To state this a different way, we're basically transferring the use permit from the former owners to the new owners.
That's
As
right.
is.
As is, right.
okay.
And just,
Does
you know,
anyone have any?
this isn't that unusual. We've done it before, most recently in the case of Bellagio's, when they came in and asked that their use permit be kept intact several years ago, but their ownership changed. And we approved the ownership change.
Whereas
And
Bellagio Hospitality Group or whatever, right?
whatever it was. And
Yeah.
before, I think it was an LLC. So the only change was the actual ownership. And there were actual, just as in this case, there are certain common elements in the ownership too. It wasn't a completely new, unknown and different party.
Okay, given that Kevin is on, we might as well see if Kevin has anything he wants to say about what's going on. Obviously, important and exciting news. Kevin, anything you want to say?
No, other than the fact that, you know, I'm excited to run the pub again. You know, Kathy's not wrong. I have expressed that, you know, once, you know, I get in here and, you know, let the dust settle and see what changes need to be made within the building. I will probably apply, you know, with ARB for some construction stuff, mainly a new hood, because people are tired of smelling like French fries. But I mean, other than that, I'm not trying to, you know, change much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to make sure the council understood what was going on here and what was and was not on the table.
Oh,
Bill, Steve, you have a motion? You want to make a motion?
yeah, we know, Bill. We got it.
No. It's just, yes. All right. Trying to be thorough and transparent. Apologies for that. All right. I will make a motion to approve the application from the Main Street Pub for the change in ownership as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Second.
Second.
Any further
Guys?
discussion? All in favor?
Wait for the
say
vote, Kevin.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations, Kevin.
Thank you.
My,
We'll see
my
you guys all this weekend.
condolences. All right. What's next?
Anything else, Planning Commission?
We have one information item. The Planning Commission reviewed and approved the application of Laura and Reagan McDonald for a boundary line adjustment between their property on School Street and their property located on Clifton Road, which is contiguous. The application was made for the purpose to vacate the ingress and egress easement existing on their property in order to relocate the driveway, which was on the next property, the Clifton Road property. The applicant had confirmed that the provisions of section 1057 have all been met. which is for the expedited boundary line adjustment to be approved. Timely notice was provided to the adjacent property owners. They obtained the approval of the county health department, which that section of the code also requires, and submitted a draft deed and draft plat that's been reviewed and signed off on by the town engineer as well as the town attorney. So as soon as the deed and the plat have been actually signed, they're required to be recorded and filed by the applicant with a copy given to the town clerk.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Zoning administrator, do you want to say something about your training?
Yes, so if you remember, I went in June to Charlottesville for a couple of days and I attended training to become a certified zoning administrator through the Virginia Zoning Officials organization. And just a couple of weeks ago, I spent a couple of days in Roanoke and I took a very grueling set of tests and I found out that I passed all 3. So I will be officially a certified zoning administrator in a couple of months. So thank you very much for supporting my effort and for financially supporting it as well. It was a lot of work, but it was definitely very worth it. I feel like I have just really filled in a lot of gaps in my knowledge. So hopefully I'll be better going forward.
Always a great investment for the town, I think.
Congratulations.
It's great.
Yeah. Congratulations. Anything else?
That's it.
ARB?
The ARB met this month. There was only one application from the Clifton Cafe to install a range exhaust hood, which will penetrate through the roof, and it was approved.
Okay, thank you. Haunted Trail, can you give an update?
Yeah, so we've made a ton of progress since the last time the council met last month. We have approximately 50 volunteers pretty much committed. We'd like to have at least double that. I know that Clifton Day is happening first, so we're gonna be redoubling our efforts to recruit volunteers after that. So stay tuned for more email blasts and notices and pleas on social media. I did put together just a few more stats just to let you know how we're going. We have about 15 skits currently in the mix at varying levels of development and commitment. We're still very much looking for volunteers to help put on spooky scenes, which are a little different. Skits is what we use to describe a scene that has live actors in it. But we kind of want to alternate some of those skits with scenes that are just spooky and decorated like the day before the event. And they don't have to be manned by actors. So it's a great opportunity for some families to get involved that otherwise would not be able to the night of, especially if they've got young kids, and definitely encourage people to team up, not just to decorate scenes or to do any of the other volunteer spots, but particularly for skits. I hear, and this is my first year volunteering, but I've heard that in the past, there's always been a skit or a team representing for Frog Hill, but there isn't one this year. And the same is true for Clifton Heights. So if any of you have friends on those hills, if you could reach out to them, encourage them to think about doing a skit, even if it's something small or totally new, that would be really great. We have 10 sponsors committed so far. for a total of $7,000, which is only $500 less than the previous years. So we're doing great on that front. The tickets go on sale this coming Friday at midnight, and that's all on the website, which is, I think, finally updated all together. And we're about to order our t-shirts, and I think you guys are going to like the design that Edie made and that everybody approved. There's, like I said, a main sign up genius, and we're just going to continue to circulate it and plead for volunteers. There's a lot of different options available for people.
Yeah, I think the point about waiting, we'll put a big push on at Clifton Day and following Clifton Day. I think I'll be walking around for part of the day at least. Our bird loves Clifton Day, so as long as it's not too cold, I'll have him out and I'll be asking around. So Amanda and Sydney have done incredible work pulling this all together. So hats off.
What is the plan for a rain date?
None, no rain date. Yeah, it's the event's been rain or shine the last several years that we did it. We've kind of moved to a rain or shine, MO, just because, I think we had 1 year where it was just too muddy to do it, but we've been able to muscle through drizzling the last couple times. So.
And then would you just return all of the ticket sales right to the
No,
individuals?
we tell them up front it's rain or shine,
Yeah.
No refunds. They purchase knowing that there's no rain date and that there's no refunds. It's a fundraiser.
Very good. Thank you. All right, moving along. Next item, speed alert signs for the town of Clifton update. I think Jim Chesley was planning on being available and maybe out there in cyberspace. Tell me.
I'm trying to promote Jim to panelist.
Okay. And then Jim will give an update on that, and then traffic calming measures. Jim wanted to provide some input on that regarding Fairfax County Police Department. And I'll just mention real quick for those who have not seen, VDOT already put the rumble strips back in. So one of the three things we asked about, they have already responded on. But Jim will talk about the speed alert signs and then roll into traffic calm.
So Jim is a panelist now, and Jim, you might want to take your device off mute. Excellent.
Okay, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'll bring you up to date on two major issues. First is the RMS speed signs. We received 4 of them, and I had met here on Monday with the Novec people about installation. They may install 3 of the 4 this week, at the latest next week. And that'll be the 2 here on Kinchlow in front of my house, and the 1 at the by Reagan's house at the corner of School and Clifton Road. The 4th one, we may, Bill, and Council, we may want to rethink where we want to put it. And the reason is this. We were going to put it right before the triangle coming into town. We have to get a permit to do that and flaggers, and that will cost us. That one, Novac's not going to pick up the tab on. That's about a $2,000 tab for flaggers. Now, here's my thoughts about that particular site after I found out we have to, pay extra for flaggers. With the rumble strips installed, and when VDOT gets off the dime and puts the chevrons back at the end of right at the end of the street before you go off the edge into the floodplain, and they put that 2-way arrow back, I think that's going to solve what we've seen happen. And by the way, there has been 2 cars in there since July 4th. The one on July 4th was a DUI. And then there was a BMW that went in there about a week ago. I would also, that's my thought on that, to push VDOT to do what they need to do to replace everything. I would also, my personal opinion is we should ask them to put up a strip of a guardrail just to keep people from going into that, into the floodplain. And then we could use the 4th one that we got elsewhere in town somewhere. I don't have any thoughts for where. So anyway, that's the what's going on with the speed signs. Is there any questions about that?
Yeah, I have so is there not a Novec power pole that we can attach to in that area, or is there?
There is
Is it-
no, there is a pole.
Mhm.
It's right to the left. There's poles on the right and left.
Okay.
The ones on the right are a little far off the road. There's one right to the left. It's about, I'd say, 30 feet before the triangle.
Mhm.
We'd have to cut some small trees down, but what I'm saying is anything that is installed on Clifton Road needs flaggers. And that's where the extra costs come in.
How did we miss that on the front end of this? I'm just curious.
How did we what?
How did we miss that component on the front end? Like when
We
we were
don't
planning
have,
this,
we're
how
not
did we
going to
not-
have,
how-
we're
how did we
not going to
know
have
that
to have,
beforehand?
we're not going to have flaggers for the other sites.
Tim, can you describe what a flagger is?
It's 2 people with flags to direct traffic.
Oh,
While the
just
work
for
is
the
happening.
installation. I
Yeah,
see.
while the
Yeah.
work's going on. We don't need them to replace the 2 that are on Main Street, Kinslow Road, or the one at Reagan's, because there's a side street there they can sit. But anything on Clifton Road, we have to have flaggers. Now, we can go ahead with that one if you'd like. But that's $2,000 that the town would have to pick up. Novec's picking up all the other costs of running the wiring and installing the signs, things like that, but they won't pick up the cost of the flaggers or to get the permit.
Hmm.
Does that answer your questions?
I understand the ask, and the what you're saying. Obviously it would have been helpful to know this before, and we could have just approved the expense on that location if we had known.
It's something that I hadn't even thought about either. I thought there'd be enough room, and the ones we weren't looking at this one on the left coming into town. We were looking at ones on the right, and there is a little bit of area to work on the right. You may not need a flagger, but they're too far off, and there's a lot of vegetation, trees that have to be cut for the line of sight.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on the signs? Okay, the second item is I met this past Saturday for about an hour with Officer PFC Collier of Fairfax County Police about how we can get better coverage around town. And he told me a couple of things which I don't know whether you all are aware of or not. We do have 7 days a week for 4 hours every day, a Fairfax County Police in the Clifton area. What does that mean? The Clifton area goes from Braddock Road to town to Wolf Run Shoals. They have 4 different officers that are currently doing these 4-hour shifts around Clifton. And basically, one of them does, if you look at the town and divide it up into 4 quadrants, 2 on the Braddock Road side, 2 on the Wolf Run Shoals side, each one covers a particular quadrant. That's what's currently going on. Now, I explained to Officer Collier, that's all well and good, and thank you, and we're very happy about that. But we have what we think are speeding problems, specifically on Main Street, Kinchlow, and Main Street, Clifton Road, beginning at the stop sign at Main Street and School. And it's mainly between the hours of 5 and 9. So I said, if you can suggest that the officers work more of those times, we would appreciate it. That's their normal thing. Then we got into, what if the town wants to hire off-duty policemen? We can do that, and we would have a say in where they would be and when they would be there. It's a minimum of 4-hour shifts, and it starts at $40 an hour. And Officer Collier told me, he says, quite frankly, Jim, you probably won't get many takers at the $40 an hour price. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, it's like a lottery. If you want to pay 50 or 60 bucks an hour, you'll get people signed up. You want to pay the basic minimum, you probably won't. So what I'm suggesting is, in the meantime, let's see if they change their hours a little bit. And I'm in constant contact now once a week with Officer Collier about setting, like up at Clifton Heights or along Clifton Road, as you go out of town, at the driveway for the house, the first house on the right, the driveway there, this is the house that can't be, hasn't been, a residential use permit hasn't been approved yet, I believe. That's still empty. Anyway, he says, let us try, now that we know your concerns and hours, give us a little bit more time before you opt for the police and, the off-duty police. Now, I encourage everybody on the council to go on the Fairfax County website and look up the RTAP program, Residential Transportation Program. It has 5 legs to it, and 3 of the legs, one of them is traffic calming. And under traffic calming, they have things like pavement marking. I think we need to, and the police thought this was a good idea. In fact, he brought it up. He said, why don't you think about marking Clifton Road as it comes down the hill? And this is down the hill from out of town towards Reagan's, with paint a big arrow going left. I said, okay. He says, you need to go under the traffic calming and see what the requirements are. The other thing under traffic calming is speed humps. Now, I know one of the problems we have or had when we put the speed hump by Dell Avenue and Kinchlow was the fact that the fire trucks, we had to consider the fire trucks and how high the speed hump was. And so I was thinking, well, I wonder whether we could put a speed hump on Clifton Road as you go out of town, towards Wolfront Shoals, towards Davis's store. And I said, well, no, I imagine there'd be a problem because it goes uphill, and that's the route the fire trucks use constantly. Then I was wondering, and I don't have the answer to this, I wonder whether they could put a half a speed hump, like just do half of one coming down the hill to slow people down coming down the hill. I don't know. It's just a thought. So anyway, I think the town needs to look in the traffic calming as far as maybe we can use another speed hump. Maybe there's pavement marking. Second leg is the $200 fine for speeding signs. You'll see these on Newman Road. And I never knew how effective they were, but Officer Collier says, Jim, these things are extremely effective. He says, let me give you an example. He says, when I pull somebody over on Yates Ford Road between Clifton Road and Chapel, or on Maple Branch between Clifton Road and Henderson Road, because they have those signs. Those tickets usually, if people are doing 60 miles an hour, those tickets will run about $700 to $800, because the structure of the ticket is much different than a normal ticket. They don't start at the speed limit and start adding X amount of dollars per mile that you're over that speed limit. They start at 0 mile per hour and that's where the money adds up. He says it's been quite effective when somebody sees they're going to have to pay $750 for a speeding ticket. It makes them think a lot more. So maybe within the town, I think all the town roads that qualify under this $200 fine, the town should pursue that. That's also under the RTAP program. The third piece under the RTAP program is the through truck restriction. Now, years ago, Jay O'Brien and I were successful in getting the not recommended for through trucks put on Clifton Road. That was before the Parkway was built, and the Prince William Parkway, before that was built, before 123 was upgraded. Now that all that's been done, I think it might be fruitful to examine this once again to make it a through truck restriction. All that means is, unless a truck has a stop within the area, then they cannot use these roads without a fine. That gets sent to the American Trucking Association, and all the dispatchers are made aware that, hey, you don't send tractor trailers, whatever, through these areas unless they have to have a stop there. So I think those three things are worth looking into. Now, I just spoke 2 days ago, I guess it was, what's today, Sunday, with Senator Barker, and went over all this with him. He says, Jim, I'm happy to help the town. Just let me know if there's any of these issues that I need to take down to the legislators, because there is a glitch that says you have to meet some 85th percentile of speeding or something like that. I think I can get things like that waived for the town. So anyway, that's my update on both the signs and the police. Any questions?
Thanks for doing all the legwork, Jim. That's awesome. Really, really appreciate it.
Okay, well, you should be seeing some of the signs go up later this week or first of next week. And you guys let me know what you want to do, whether you want to pick up a tab for an extra for the flaggers, or do we want to look at other spots? I'd still like to see if there's some spot as you go out of town on Clifton Road towards Davis's store that we can install a solar sign.
If there are no power
sign.
poles,
Yeah, because there are no power poles.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm prepared to make a decision on that last sign tonight, unless there are others on the council that are comfortable paying for the flaggers tonight and approving that tonight. I wasn't expecting to hear about this, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can look into a number of different options and locations before we make a decision.
Okay, well, I'll just stand by.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks,
Sure.
Jim.
Thank you.
No problem. Talk to you guys later. I'm signing off.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jim.
thanks, Jim. Hey, just a
Sure.
quick update on this topic. The VDOT
Yeah.
engineer was out today surveying the intersection down there at Clifton Road and Pendleton. So it's been about a half an hour with them, and they're going to come up with some recommendations, probably some additional signage marking the sharp turn and cleaning up the signs and cutting back limbs, etc., that obscure the signs coming into both sides of town.
I guess you had some fresh pictures to show them too? From
Yeah,
Sunday?
we filled him in on the latest activity.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, he said that given the traffic volume and the amount of accidents, they're studying it, but it's not necessarily out of bounds from a lot of other places around the county. But they are taking action, so
That's comforting.
Good to see.
Yeah, Reagan, I ran into him too while I was out walking the dog today, and I talked to him about coming in the north side of town and getting the sign up. And it sounds like you've already established that that's coming, that's on his list, and it'll just take a little bit more time in addition to the rumble strips. I also asked him about putting up the guardrail. That Jim had mentioned the guardrail, and we talked about it last time. And he said that guardrails, the way that they're designed, are really meant to bump you back onto the road. So if you're hitting a guardrail at anything that exceeds a 60-degree angle, that the guardrail is just gonna blow open like a gate. So he didn't. That doesn't sound like that's something.
Yeah.
We need a tail hook arrestor. It's the only hope there.
Okay.
Just get a big net.
We sort of
Joe,
have that
anything
with those
to-
trees.
Anything to say about the holiday tree lighting?
I don't have an update. I got the information from Donna, and I've put a couple calls in, but I've had some family medical stuff going on, so I don't have an update there yet. I'm sorry.
Okay, just let us know.
Yep.
And the final item on the agenda, because we already did Dominion Energy, is Clifton Day request for no amplified music in Air Square. Contacted by a neighbor who said that in past years, Air Square's had some musical performers who've had some amplified music, and they would prefer not to have it. And we're just putting it on the agenda for discussion. The CBA people noted that the Clifton Day, the town code expressly has an exception for noise related to the official Clifton Day program. This stuff would be. Nonetheless, presumably you would not want outrageously loud music in Air Square. I'm not really sure what the events are. My understanding is there are two things that would be amplified music. One was a guy with an acoustic guitar, and the other one, I don't know what it is, but wanted to put this out there for the council to at least consider and think about the citizen request and the CBA response. So any questions, discussion, thoughts? Go ahead.
Since I'm on the CBA committee, the Clifton Day committee, and I talked to the person that's the music chair and responsible for all the music. And there are 3 musical groups that will be performing there. 2 there are both bands. The first 2 bands are just 2 people in each of the bands. And they do have, guitars with amplifiers. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to hear them. But the music is facing toward Main Street, which is where all the businesses are. And the last performer, the group that's going to be performing, is the Northern Virginia Brass Band. So they are not amplified.
Not electronically amplified.
That's correct. So I feel like the CBA and the Clifton Day Committee is pretty respectful of the residents and trying to make accommodations so that it does not impact significantly. So with the music facing toward Main Street and not toward any residences, that
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was gonna suggest if amplification, if there are amplifiers on stage, if they can, we can ensure they're pointed away from residences. I think that'll help.
Mhm.
I mean,
And
Clifton
each-
Day's loud. I can hear it all the way over here on School Street. It's a loud day. It's part of living in town, but I understand the request, and it sounds like the CBA and the committee are being thoughtful.
And again, it's each of the first two bands are two people in it. I guess there's a guitar and a drum. So, and then of course the last one is a lot of brass.
All right, any questions or thoughts by any council members? Okay. All right,
I might say, does the CBA kind of monitor that and, check in on the folks that are playing amplified, just to make sure that it's not more than is needed?
We can go around and do that. That'll be something that just even as attendees, we should all watch and see what it's like. And I don't know that anyone can tell the brass band to not be so brassy.
Yeah, get your muffles in, or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
okay, there's nothing further. That's the last item on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Take care all.
Thank you, Phyllis and Amanda.
Thank you. Have a good night.